And we're on. Okay, first things first. Thanks for taking a bit of time out your day and coming on to chat to us. And congratulations about bringing your baby home. I seen it's been a bit of a rough time from your post in hospital.
Yeah, man, it's been a rough few months, but we're getting through it. So we're all happy to be home now. I think we're kind of at the end of that most stressful part. So I really appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so what I like to do with all the guests is basically, first of all, take you back to a time before you did strongman and see how you got into the sport.
Yeah, man. So like before I even got into actually, training strongman or training in general, I was I think I had a similar exposure to strongman as a lot of people, just watching it on ESPN around Christmas time. In America, catching catching reruns in the States all the time on ESPN2. So I have distinct memories back in, when I was 10 years old, watching Magnus and, reruns of Jean Paul and everything. And so that was definitely my first exposure to it, and just knowing, just seeing this crazy stuff. Because at that point, you don't know any better. And with how young the sport was at that point, you're just seeing these huge dudes lifting rocks up, and I don't know what kind of young boy doesn't want to lift up some rocks and some wild stuff like that. So that was my first exposure to it. And then I think I had a fairly typical upbringing ahead of the sport, just sports, general athletics and everything. So I competed played football up to a collegiate level, American football, not soccer.
Yeah.
But so I played that for several years, and really that was kind of my true introduction to getting into the gym. And I just became a gym rat, just being on the team, was always in the gym, always just lifting weights and everything. And that was really when I started to transition away from working out to actually training, and having a specific goal in mind, specifically training for strength rather than just to build up some glamour muscles or anything like that. So that was my upbringing coming into the sport, and just what I did before I came into strongman here.
So how did you find strongman, and what age was you?
Yeah, so back in 2016, I had just, I'd finished college. I just bought a new house, and there was a gym nearby where my house was at the time and where I was living that was the only strongman gym in the area. And they had all the kit that you could possibly need. They had sandbags, stones, all the standard implements. And I was there just kind of going through the motions, doing whatever. And a couple of just big old guys. One who I found out later was Dave Oslin. He lives in Minnesota too. So realized it was him after the fact, but they just invited me over to do stones with them. Picked up some stones, and that just kind of got bit by it ever since. There was a competition that I got pushed to sign up for just a few weeks after I had picked up my first stone. I ended up sweeping that entire competition. And it wasn't anything major or anything like that. Won every single event, but there were 3 people. It was in a parking lot. Every single event was done on grass. So we had a clean and press event where it was done completely on grass, no mats or anything. So that was kind of the quality of that show at that time. But enjoyed my first time out, and then found out that there were different avenues that you could go. Actually completed this at a national level. So I started going through that route, and rest is history at this point.
So did you find, and I found this with actually most people, you're like the 13th person I've had on now, that are at elite level, that they just got into the gym and found that they was already quite strong without doing it. Is that how you found it yourself?
I would say yes and no. Definitely had the strength, especially to be at an elite level at the time. So like I said, my first competition was at the end of 2016. I was at the point where I would be able to, I think I would have been able to go to nationals, would have been able to compete at OSG in 2017 if I wanted to, but I would have got my ass kicked. I would not have made finals or anything like that. So my biggest hang up at that point, and shit for most of my career. Can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, cool. Sorry. Yeah, I should have asked that before we started recording. My deadlift was just poverty level, and that kind of tied back to an old football-related injury. And so everything, I would say, pressing was great, loading was pretty decent. I was always a good mover. I've always been a good mover, but my deadlift was just very far behind. So if there was anywhere where I would say I was lagging as far as strength coming into the sport, it was definitely on that deadlift, which is obviously pretty damn important in the sport.
Yeah, I was going to speak to you about that. You just touched on it then, your injury, because recently I watched you on Ross's podcast. His surname eludes me at this stage, but it was pretty interesting because you spoke about your injury, and you spoke about Stuart McGill and his books, and I've actually went on and looked on Amazon to get one of his books actually, because I found it so interesting of what you were saying.
Yeah.
So if you could just sort of like tell us, everyone, about your injury and what the doctors said. And
yeah, so specifically about my back injury. So that one was, it was just kind of like a nagging injury. My deadlift sucked. It hurt. Like I was crippled for days after doing deadlifts. And it wasn't necessarily just because of form. It was definitely there were form had something to do with it, but it was just this aggravating injury called it's called, I still have trouble pronouncing it, spondylolisthesis. But if you Google spondy, SPONDY, it'll bring up what this is. But it's worse than a slipped disc. It's if your discs are like this, one of my discs is literally shifted all the way over, and then there's another disc evenly on top. So it's not just slipped, it's like out of place, and you can't fix it unless you go through spinal fusion. So I went into the doctor to get it checked out, and they bring me through the process of getting an x-ray. They come back and give me an MRI, and there was only, it started out with one doctor. He leaves for a few minutes, and I'm just sitting in this doctor's office, and then 5 minutes later he comes back with 4 or 5 different doctors. They all are in there all at once. And I said, well, this doesn't look good. And he immediately broke the news to me, like, we need to get you in for surgery, like scheduled now. Like you're coming in this week to get surgery, and talking about fusing my vertebrae together to kind of alleviate some of the pain and everything like that. And my first question was, okay, because I had done all the research that I could possibly do at this point to, educate myself on what I needed to do. And they said we got to fuse your vertebrae together. I asked how soon is it going to be before I have to do another fusion surgery? Because that's how these always go. If you get one vertebrae fused within 5 to 10 years, the next one above or below needs to be fused. And eventually, and shit, at my age, 25 years old at that point, like I'm going to have just a completely stiff spine time I'm in my 40s. So that didn't work for me. I left, obviously did not do the surgery, and started just doing more research. That's where I found about Dr. McGill. Again, I don't think that his practices aren't necessarily groundbreaking or anything like that, but it's basic, and the basics are kind of what you need to do to just rebuild yourself sometimes. So I went through, did his big 3 with, your bird dogs, cat cow type things, slowly strengthened those muscles up, and broke down my form on deadlift, like going from all the way down to the barbell. And then I'd just do the barbell for a couple days. Then I'd add a couple pounds on, keep going up just very, very gradually. And at this point, my back has never felt better than it has right now. I'm stronger than I've ever been. And the funny part is just if I ever go to get body work done, the first thing they say is, holy shit, your erectors are just so dense. And it's just because I've basically built a belt around that injury area. My body's reacted where I just have 2 gigantic ropes protecting those vertebrae. And it's worked. It's worked better than any sort of surgery ever would have been.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like I said, I've got it here, the book I was looking at, Ultimate Back Fitness and Performance. It was Stuart McGill. Just because I probably, like most people in strongman, you suffer some kind of back niggle injury, and we're not all clued up from the very start, are we? So we make mistakes and stuff like that. And I've found that, and that bit of flexion back that you need for logs sometimes, and stones, I get a little bit of a pinch down in the lower back. So yeah, it was something that I thought it's probably worth a read and seeing what I can do, really. So I was going to ask you, what would you say has been your sort of biggest progression from back then to now? But I imagine it's going to be deadlift.
I think it's got to be deadlift, man. If we go back to like my first OSG, and if I remember right, it was they had that deadlift ladder there, and I flew through the first 2 bars, and if I'm remembering right, it was like 405, 495, 555, and I just got glued on 555, and to not be able to pull that at the OSG level is obviously completely unacceptable. And then I go, within a few years, I'm able to rep, 630 on an axle at Worlds, and it's just the hands down my progression. That the best area that I progress in is that strength wise would have to be deadlift.
What would you say has been your biggest struggle, though, taken away from the deadlift and maybe the back? Or if you struggled with anything else?
I'd have to say my biggest struggle has to be, as much as I hate to say it, it's like loading and stones, but I could take accountability for it because I fucking hate doing stones, man. It's a pain in the ass to do stones, like tacking up and everything like that. I absolutely hate it. So, but me and my coach, that's one of the things that we're tackling now. We've just realized that but especially with my body, we just need to force me to do the things that I don't want to do, because I'm like a hyper responder. If I load a 300 stone every single week for 6 weeks, it's going to be second nature to me, and it's not a problem anymore, regardless of the height, regardless of how fatigued I am. That we just need to pound my body with the stimulus to get to work again.
Yeah, I remember you saying that in Ross's podcast, actually, that it doesn't take much for you. You do it a bit and you're a quick learner. Does that transfer into other parts of your life?
Yes, but more in the sense of like, I'm not a half measure guy. If I'm going to do something, I need to go 100% in. Otherwise, I'm miserable. I'm not happy with it. And that's kind of it's a blessing and a curse as far as like how that hits me as an athlete, because if you just go with like the, OSG, for example, in my training leading up to this year's OSG, like clearly not an ideal situation right at the point when everybody else is supposed to be peaking. I'm literally in the gym 2 or 3 times a week, just doing the bare minimum that I can just to keep that stimulus in and just to get some movement in. And we see exactly where that landed me at the end of the day. So it's like, it doesn't seem to take much at this point, but it's not like that just happened overnight. I've been actually training for over 10 years now, and specifically towards strength. And once you get older and, your muscle is a little bit more mature, it just takes a little bit less for it to respond the way that it does and kind of like remember where it is and how strong you actually are.
Yeah, definitely. So for people getting into the sport, what kind of advice would you give to newbies? Because we're out there promoting our sport a lot now for males and females as an elite athlete. Now, what kind of advice would you give to
Dude, I love that question. I love that question. So advice I would give to new athletes, people that are new to the sport: surround yourself with as many people that are within the sport as you can. Build a community around you, because especially at the beginning, like, you need to learn a lot. Don't think that you know it all. Don't think that you know anything. Like, you don't know shit. I don't care how many times you watch World's Strongest Man. You have no idea what you're talking about. Work with people, immerse yourself in the community a little bit, and you'll learn a lot. Swallow your pride as early as possible, and don't think that you need to be hitting crazy numbers right out of the gate. Check your ego at the door with this stuff, because you're going to get hurt. You're not going to have a good time, and then you're going to fizzle out of the sport. We've seen it even happen at the elite level. Like, people will come in, they brag about how they've only been in the sport for 2 years, and they're just constantly hurting themselves, and then you don't hear from them again. Like, it happens all the time. So it's not just for new athletes or anything like that. And then the last thing, hire a coach. As soon as you've been in this for a few months, get a coach that actually knows what they're talking about, so you can get real programming in. Really work to get on your base level strength, and that's going to help you to help prevent injuries and just really get you on that right path to actually taking the sport seriously.
I was actually going to say, how important is a coach? Because I know you didn't get one straight away, did you?
No. First 2 years at OSG, I did not have a coach, and I was basically following kind of like standard, like doing RPE stuff, kind of doing like some jailhouse strong type, like just linear progressions. There was nothing really special about it. And then I finally got around to hiring a coach. He definitely did a good job programming for me, but I didn't necessarily get that hands-on experience with him. And then that was when I made the jump over to MST and started working with Dan Ashcroft. And the results kind of speak for themselves. I haven't missed a podium since I made the jump over to them at the beginning of 2023, all elite level international shows, and we haven't missed a podium yet. So I can't say enough good things about MST, that whole team. Kind of an awesome place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've not worked with them, but I've met them all, and I was coached by Josh Lancaster, and this similar group.
Bro,
yeah,
I love Josh.
I've had him. Yeah, he's
the greatest.
Crazy, like some of the stuff that he programs, but it works, and I can't argue with what where we've gone to and like from and to. Do you ever struggle with nerves competing?
All right, so I'll sound like a complete asshole. Absolutely not. Like 0%. I just don't like, it's for some reason, it just has never resonated with me about like stressing out about things that you can't control. Like when I end up stepping onto the comp floor, I have no doubts in my head that I've done everything that I could have possibly done to get to where I could be. Like, I'm not worried about whether I'll be able to hit an event or hit a rep, or whether I'm going to like if I'm doing a car walk, I'm not worried about whether I'm going to stumble or drop this thing. Like, in my head, there is no chance that I'm going to fail. And that just immediately removes any concern in my mind. Like, there's no nerves whatsoever. But weirdly, like afterwards, I get like ridiculously hyped up the second the event's done. Like, so I have this, like, ramping up. And then right by the time that 60 seconds is up in the event, like I'm up here, I'm really, really high, and I need to come down. So I've got a handful of different strategies I use to like rep myself down and be able to not just completely do an adrenaline dump where you have no energy for the next event. And I chose like OSG, especially in the new format, like huge deal, because you can't just dump it and just like completely be drained for the next event. You need to kind of taper and be ready to break out where your energy is going to be spent.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about OSG, but as you mentioned it there, we will do now. So the new format, did that work better for you, grouping the events sort of together instead of, obviously the old format was you did an event and then you had like 5 or 6 hours gap, didn't you? Like the first one I went to was 2023 and I messed up at first, so we did the overhead, didn't we? The medley overhead. Yep. And then I stayed in the arena, but I got in my own head about it because I watched everyone, and then I watched the next event and I was like, oh, look at them doing that. And I was all up in my own head, and then it come to the frame and I'd totally messed up then. So then on day 2, after I had all my hands bandaged up from that frame, I'd done the event, and then I went back to the hotel and just chilled out for hours and then come back, and it was a much better day.
That was smart. That's definitely smart. And as your first time at OSG, like that's a common thing that people just don't really think about when you're there. And when it's your first time at a big show like that, it's something you just need to learn, because you don't know how you're going to react personally. Like that's something I never had to deal with something like that. I've know some people, they've had years where they had that exact same experience you did, and then the next year they don't have that experience, and then next year they're freaking out again. So it's just kind of like you just need to know, and it's part of maturing as an athlete and just learning how is your body going to react, how's your mind going to react, because that's like everybody kind of focuses on strength, and it's really easy to overlook the mental side of it and how you need to be really, really calm between your ears to be successful in the sport.
Yeah, I think I'd totally messed. Well, that was not only was that my first OSG, that was the first time I'd cut, because I used to compete at under 90. That was the first time I'd cut to under 80, and the first time international, so traveling as well. And then at that stage, so I had quite a lot going on and messed me refeed up. And anyone who listens to these are probably bored of listening to me tell this story how I messed up my refeed, but I really have learned some lessons going into 2024 season.
Yeah.
Competing at England's and Europe's much, much better refeed. Do you have to cut sort of really dial your nutrition in as well, or
Yeah. So, and before we move on to that next one, I realized I didn't even answer your question.
Oh yeah, I totally missed out all the OSG stuff.
The new format did not work better for me. I feel like the wrap, because that was the first time in over a year, 2 years almost, that I had competed in something where I didn't have like an extended break in between my events. I think it still handled, like it was fine, whatever. The first day wasn't bad, but by day 2, like the carry medley, like I was roasted on that one. Like I drastically underperformed because of the format. That being said, the format's better. It's for sure better. And it's better for an athlete's perspective. It's better for a viewership perspective. Like everything about it is better. So totally a me problem, not an OSG problem.
So whilst we're on that subject then, it's obviously a hot topic at the minute, athlete performance experiences at comps.
Yeah.
And we'll cover some comparisons, because obviously you've done Arnold's and back-to-back under 80 champ, so we've got something to compare it against another international show. So we'll start the positives with OSG. What do you think is good about the show? It's obviously the pinnacle for us lightweights.
Yeah. I'm glad we're starting with the good things, because there's a ton of positive parts about OSG. Like the environment that it's in, fantastic. The expediters, the grounds crew, the crew that are loading and resetting events, incredible. The crew that he has, or that Lynn specifically has around him, I love them. Loved working with all those people. So that's huge. The venue itself this year, very cool. Like I think that the athlete area was really, really good. Like the way they had it set up was awesome. And then most importantly, because I think this is the thing that people overlook about OSG specifically and these big shows, is like OSG is the value behind OSG is the content that comes out of it. Like it's the video, it's the live stream. It's like, that's what's important about that. The athlete experience is very important as well. Like what we think, but at the end of the day, like, we need to worry a lot about having this video production being at a top tier. This year specifically, hands down the best. Like, I can't say enough positive things about how well the videos were put, like the videos they put together, the athlete video that Joe Schofield put together, all the work that production team did was fantastic. Like, I love that.
Yeah, when I spoke to Chloe Brennan yesterday, we were talking a lot about this, and she said, number one, it's an entertainment. We're entertainers because the sport was born out of entertainment. And I'll ask you the same question, because people want to see characters, don't they, in the sport?
Yeah.
And they asked, is it hard to show your character when you look at the audience and there's not many people there? And I could ask her the question because she's competed at a Giants live show as well.
Yep.
And I said, is it easy to bring out a character when you've got all these people in the crowd looking? And is it harder when you sort of at OSG and you want to show a character and give it some noise, but then nobody's there?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and I think that Chloe has a better answer probably than I will in this scenario, because Chloe got to lift the Denny Stones in front of 2,000 people. That was and like, I got to watch that happen. It was one of the coolest strongman moments I've ever seen. For her to like miss it and then come back and actually pick it up, it was awesome. Like, I love that. But like, if you're asking that, I mean, like, my character moment from this previous year was after the car yoke, right?
Yeah.
And if you're asking that, when I look forward after fucking doing my like dance like with the car, and I see like 14 people in the stands, I felt like a fucking dickhead. Like, I felt like an idiot. So it definitely
Does it look really cool? It stuck in my head. I knew exactly what you was going to say then, because it looked cool, because I only seen it from video.
Yep.
But then I was wondering what your experience was of doing it like that. And does it put you off doing more things like that because of...
It doesn't put me off from doing more, but that's because I understand this, I'm not doing it for the crowd there. Would it be cooler if there was a crowd there? Absolutely. I would have preferred there to be a crowd there for sure. But like, I've kind of understood that you need to kind of make your own moments in these. Like, you need to create the video, you need to create the content, you need to make a highlight for yourself. And there's limited number of opportunities for that to happen for an athlete. And I think that you just need to take advantage of those whenever you can. You can't control, like I said before, you can't control how many people show up to the competition. You can't control how many people are in the stands. You kind of just got to focus on yourself.
So I'm not going to say negatives, because I don't think they are negatives for OSG. I think it's just improvements, and we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing, basically, don't we?
Yeah.
So what's your improvements you think you can make, basically, to get it a bigger show for us? Because that's what we want, and I think it's what we deserve as that level athletes, to be fair.
Yeah. So not even specifically for OSG, this is just promoters in general, right? I think that there's always it's consistent across all competitions I've ever done. Communication from promoters to athletes is almost non-existent. Like, in the States, both national shows, so Strongman Corp Nationals, USS Nationals, the primary mode of communication for those guys is a Facebook like events page. And if you don't read through every single post on the Facebook events page, you might miss a specific rule about, whether you can bounce the deadlift, or what sort of equipment is going to be used, what's the height because of the deadlift that you're doing, because they just do such a terrible job of communicating that within the rules. Over the years, that's gotten a little bit better, but now you're running into things where like promises are made, they're openly put out there, and then it's not the lack of delivery on that promise, it's the lack of communication on the change of what happened. Like, if we're talking about the money thing, like, as a podium finisher at OSG, I don't necessarily care about the money so much. I care that it was kind of touted that it was going to be the highest, paid show ever. And then it was the lowest money in years, right? It's not about the money itself. It's about that communication, because I would not say a word about it had we all known. Same thing with like athlete passes, coaches passes, like, just communicate what the expectation is. Because at the end of the day, we're like, promoters are in a hard spot. Super hard to win and make everybody happy as a promoter. You're not going to make everybody happy. But at the very least, you can say that I communicated to everybody about what my expectation is, because if they want to put on their show, then they can do it however they want. But like, just communicate to people, because that way you're not going to have any surprises. And that's when people start getting a bad taste in their mouth. And that's when people do 10 different podcasts bitching and moaning about your event, even though it was like, as a whole, it wasn't so bad, you know?
Yeah, from what I can see, like, no, I've not seen anyone sort of say bad things. I think we all want the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest thing is sort of like publicity, isn't it? I don't think a lot of people are too bothered about the money. You just want to see people come and watch. And I think, me personally as well, think more things can be done. And it's interesting to see what other athletes think and what can be done.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is just being honest with yourself about what our sport is, right? Like, we are a niche sport, and we're like a niche within a niche, because like if I equated it to like rugby, right? Like, there's, you know, standard rugby, and then there's like rugby sevens, and there's some people that are just very dedicated to sevens, right? And like, but this is already a niche sport. Like, rugby isn't the biggest sport in America or the world, right? Strongman isn't the biggest sport in the world. Athletics, like weightlifting, is not the biggest sport in the world. But we're this like niche within a niche, so you need to treat it as such, like, where you want people just to come in out of curiosity, they come and check it out. And I think everybody said this, but like, $100 to come and watch Strongman. I love Strongman. I would never pay $100 to go watch it. That's absolutely insane. I wouldn't pay $100 to go watch World's Strongest Man. And like, so to expect somebody to come to what it is an amateur show at the same time, like, except for the opens, it's an amateur show. And in a city like Madison or Columbus, like, we get some spectators. It's just not what it should be. And I know that it could be more. You need to lower the barrier of entry. 100 tickets at $20 is a lot better than 20 tickets at $100. You're going to make the same amount of money, but you're going to sell more. Like, it's kind of this, there's this adage of seeing the forest from the trees. And I think that that's kind of the thing that's lacking right now, is we're not seeing this, like, yes, you might make less money up front, but you're going to have more people in the stands in the long run, which is going to create a better product, get the word out there. And on top of that, like, the format in which that you're going to sell tickets, like if you're selling tickets to a big show like this, I talked with somebody the other day about how you could, it would be a good idea for promoters in general. You get the word out, you make money early, and you're actually selling tickets, right? Just like any concert, they do pre-sales. Like, you know that it's happening. You get a small discount if you do the pre-sale. So therefore, you're going to get, money right up front, instead of having people buy it at the door, wait until a week out before they buy it. Like, incentivize people to come, and then you have capital up front to pay for the monstrosity of a wrecking ball hold. So you're not just taking it all out of your pocket. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that you can do to just manage it a little bit better. And then that's just like a huge thing that I think that it'd be interesting to see how that would work if that was implemented for one of these international level shows.
Yeah, like in my opinion, I think I don't get sometimes why it doesn't, because maybe it's slightly different for us in the UK, but we have the Giants live shows, and they fill arenas. Do you know what I mean? They fill arenas, so people want to watch strongman. But why don't they want to watch lightweight strongman? It's like boxing. There's heavyweights and there's lightweights, and people want to watch them equally. And obviously, the argument is is ours a bit more technical and whatever, but people want to watch strongman. So I was thinking, well, could we not, maybe put on a weight class pre-show to a big show, a Giants live, so that people are
like
still walking in the stadium grabbing beers or whatever, but there's a show on and it might just go, oh, what's this? Or they my weight category, like, I'm the same weight as them. I didn't know this existed. Do you know what I mean? Just sort of like shoving some weight categories from female and male into the pre-shows of the Giants lives and stuff. I don't know. Do you get many Giants lives over? Not.
I think we had
couple,
we had one or a couple. Like, it's only a couple. Yeah. And if you even look at the one that was in Vegas, like, you can see that there weren't as many people there as there were in the UK. And I was going to ask you, like, people want to watch Strongman, yes, but like, what is it about Strongman in the UK that it is like there's more people that want to watch it there? Because objectively, you would think that people in America would want to watch it more because there's more World Strongest Man winners. So it's a larger market. You know what I mean? So like, what do you think the difference is between the UK and the United States?
Well, again, I was discussing this with Chloe, and we think it's the character. People want to watch the characters So that's why it's so hard with Worlds OSG, because there's so many people there. And you obviously get the commentators, which is a hard job for them to know everybody.
So hard.
So we were talking about, can we make smaller shows? There may be more shows, but smaller. So instead of having 40 people in the under 80s, there's maybe 20 or maybe less than that. Like for Europe's, there was 14 in the under 80s.
Yep.
And, you could see the commentators, they were starting to pick up on your character, they were starting to pick up on your looks. When I went to OSG, like even the athletes didn't know who's in, because I was asking people, is this our, in the back, when we were warming up, I was like, is this our weight for what we're lifting out there? And they were saying, what category are you in? I said, yours. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how many people there is. So I was like, I'm just about to go out in your heat and you don't even know I'm with you. That's that many
exactly.
people.
There are
so to answer your question, I think it's went right round the houses with that. Then I think it's the characters that they managed to portray, and I think that's where we kind of struggle a little bit. We're just a number.
I think I'd agree with that, and it's kind of one of the things where you see I've heard people complaining in previous years, kind of about how do I describe it, like a perceived slight to them, because they didn't get highlights made of them, even though they did very well at OSG and things like that. And I'm like, dude, there's in the 80 kilo weight class, there were 38 people this year. And like most of them are doing, you're all picking up a car, but how fast are you moving it? Like, does that really matter how fast you're moving it if you're not like making something out of it, right? Like you can't just, it's not just about being strong. Unfortunately, like if you want to have exposure and things like that, and if you want to have your character, it's not just about being strong and good. Like I always come back to, I don't necessarily want to talk about him, but like Evan Singleton's a good example. Like not really a great performer at the end of the day. Like he gets hurt at Stros all the time. But who is the one that people remember? He's like, they remember the guy going like this, right? Like, he fucking owns it because he used to be in wrestling. He understands this character that you need to play. And it doesn't matter if he's fucking hurt at every show. It doesn't matter if he finishes, 6th, 7th, 8th at every single show, because he's got this character. And that's something that now I don't want every single person that's a mediocre strongman to just think that, oh, I just need to kind of act like Hulk Hogan or Macho Man Randy Savage, and then I'll get attention on me. Like, that's not good for us either, but you need to have some sort of personality. You need to have something special about you, because everybody that's at the top at OSG, in the 80s is deadlifting 600 pounds. Like the strength there is pretty similar. So you got to do something to set yourself apart. And I think that there's some people that understand that and other people that just kind of don't.
Do you think anybody's out there listening to what we're saying, and who is it that, like, obviously we're all making a lot of noise, but who's the person with the ears that's taking it in? And
I hope that it's everybody from, people up all the way at the top of Giants Live, people that are at OSG, the decision makers at these corporations and at these promoters. I think that they are the ones that I really hope they have the ears for it. And the thing that, again, to be fair to everybody, or to be fair to a lot of these promoters, you can see some of the feedback getting implemented. You can't implement all the feedback all in one year or anything like that. I get very frustrated by people that imply or try to believe that there is no, like, they're not doing anything. They're not listening to any athletes. They don't care, because they do. Like, I'll use Lynn as an example on this. Like, he works his ass off to get this shit done. He works all year to put this show together. And I'm sure it doesn't feel very good at the end of the day to like have people just ripping your show apart that you put all your heart into, and all this effort into. But then he does things like releases the athlete survey afterwards. And I know he clearly listened to that from West Virginia last year, or in 2023, because it's not in fucking West Virginia. That place sucked. Like, that was terrible. That was the worst. It was the worst venue. All of that shit was bad. The only cool part about that venue, and you remember this, like that walking through the athlete tunnel, that was awesome.
Yeah.
However, that isn't seen on the live stream. So like, while that's cool for the athletes, it's not seen on the live stream. That's not something that you really got to experience. So like, is it worth spending that money in that space? And I think that that's where like where we kind of transition into, like, we need smaller venues, because of a 30,000 seat 30,000 is exaggeration. 5,000 seat stadium with 3/4 of the stadium blocked off that we were in 2024, like, and you're still only got, 50 spectators, like, that doesn't look good. There needs to be some other alternative where we can get a similar size or just adjust this to make it not such an expense on the promoters to like just host the show. Like, that's crazy.
We're getting there, aren't we? We're definitely getting there. And I can see in my short time, like, things are improving every year. So we'll switch over now to the Arnolds, and you can maybe let us know a few comparisons and that. And the Arnolds is not something that I'm too familiar with. So if you can kind of tell us a little bit about that show.
Yeah. I'm going to try to be diplomatic about this. As everybody, I'm sure maybe people don't know. I'll act that people don't know. So for anybody that is kind of newer to the sport, isn't familiar with what the Arnold is. So the Arnold Sports Festival is the largest sports festival in the world. It takes place in Columbus, Ohio. I think it's in like its 25th year, 30th year, something like that. It's been happening forever. And it's in this enormous convention center, huge convention center. And you're there with a bunch of other different sports. So right off the bat, you're kind of competing with you have a lot of competing sports for attention. Like, you're trying to get your spectators to come over, like, to fill and watch your show, get exposure for your sponsors, whatnot, like that, right? Arnold usually is over the course of 2 days, or the competition itself is, of course, over 2 days. So it's a lot similar to what OSG is, where it used to be, where all the athlete, everybody does event 1, and then you have 4.5 hours before event 2, and then you come back the next day and do the next event. That's typically been the format. This year they're changing it, so it's 4 events in 1 day. So I think it's going to be a little bit more expedited, which I think I'm going to prefer this year. But the big thing for this year is it's the first year of the Arnold being run under new ownership, since Strongman Corporation was sold over the summer to James Deffenbaugh. James has been the person that has been keeping Strongman Corporation afloat. Like, he's the one that organizes all this stuff. He's the one that made all the equipment and everything like that up to this point. Now he's just at the top. So I'm very interested to see how he works to improve the athlete experience, because he is an athlete. Like, he understands the competition. I think that he's surrounded himself with a much better team and will actually listen to that team, unlike the previous ownership. So I have like very, very high hopes for what James is going to do for the Arnold this year. But it's just it's a challenge when you have, there's still 300 athletes, 250 athletes, something like that at this show, and you're working in this limited space. There's the challenge of the promoters, like you have to struggle for space with other sports and other vendors and things like that. So I think that from an organization standpoint, it's a lot more difficult. And I feel like I'm just going round and round about this right now. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you get as many international competitors at the Arnolds as OSG?
Not as many. I think that if you did the math, I think it would probably even out a little bit. Like, if you did the ratio, like there's 2 American athletes to every 1 international athlete or something like that, right? But again, previous ownership, the only way to qualify was through the American Nationals or Arnold show that was, an international Arnold show, which there's like 3 of those. So there weren't really opportunities to qualify. And then me personally, in the past, like, I wouldn't have wanted, if you would come to the Arnold one time in the past, internationally, I would not come back. I think that that's going to change this year, because again, like, ownership is going to be better. I think the events are going to be run a little bit better. And then on top of that, like, I think that the relationship that this ownership has with the organizers, I think, is going to hopefully allow us to have a little bit more of like attention on us, like specific attention, especially on the Rogue main stage and things like that for finals. I'm really like hoping that there's going to be an improvement there, so that we get a little bit more specific attention on us like that.
Do you have to travel quite a bit? And obviously, America's huge, isn't it, compared to the UK? So when we have our competitions, we're moaning if we've got to travel 4 hours. For you guys, it can be a lot further. Do you have to do a lot of traveling yourself?
I do. This OSG was the first time I've been able to drive to a competition. And so the distance for me to Madison this year was like similar to like London to Manchester would be a good comparison. Like, it's about that same length, like 4.5 hours or so. But other than that, I've had to fly to every international show that I've ever had to do. Like, Ohio is the next closest one for me, and that's like a 16-hour drive. So that's probably not happening.
Yeah. What would you prefer, OSG or the Arnolds?
OSG. Right now, OSG for sure. That might change, but it's like that's the thing. At the end of the day, OSG is still like the show, and like as I've been to the Arnold 3 times. I took second the first year, and then I won back-to-back years. And I like struggle to call myself a world champion, even though technically I'm a world champion, because OSG exists, and I haven't won OSG.
Yeah, it takes over. Depending on how you answered that question then is where my next question was going to go then, and to talk about whichever comp. So we'll talk about OSG for that. So you've pretty much done all but 2 or 3 OSGs, have you?
Yeah. So I didn't go in 2017, and that was just because I thought that I wasn't ready, wanted to be a little bit stronger. And then in 2022, I took the year off from competing that year, or 2021. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So 2023 you come second. Was you confident going into that you was, you were, podium bound?
Yes, that was the goal the whole time too. It was like the goal for it, and again, like after I started with Flash at MST, like we sat down and I said, I don't want to miss podium anymore. I feel like I'm right there, but I need to do something else to make sure I'm making podium. Like it's not acceptable for me to go to these shows and not podium. Like as soon as I stop podium at shows, that's going to be the day I'm done. Like, because I'm not in it while I have fun doing this. I'm not in this to have fun. Like I'm in this to fucking win. And anybody there's some athletes that are just there to have a good time. I think you need to do both. And what's the most fun that I can possibly fucking have is winning. Period. So like, I think like, especially going into that 2023 year, my plan was to get podium. However, like finishing second or winning wasn't necessarily like in the cards. I thought that I was definitely going to get, like, I thought I could push for third, but getting beyond that, I did not think I really had much of a chance to do better. And that, I mean, right out the gate, that seemed to change. Like getting second on the pressing medley, winning the moving medley, that like I came out really, really hot, and that set me up for a good weekend. And kind of changed my perspective right away at the beginning that hey, it's me and a couple other guys that are going to be gunning for these top spots.
So is that what went the best for you there then, the first day?
Yeah. It was the first day that went the best for me.
I mean, that press medley was something else, wasn't it? Well, from the yoke onwards.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. Like, even me, and again, well, we don't have to go back to like judging standards and things like that, but like, I mean, like my yoke, I had it locked out. It was a great press, but it fucking flew behind me and I dropped it from overhead and they let me move on. I'm like, so I don't know if I would have had another one of those in me and that would have changed the entire weekend. But like, to only have, I think only 3 people even touched the block that year in our weight class. It was like me, Harper, and I think like Quinn touched it too. So only like a couple of guys even got to that implement.
Yeah, I managed to get the yoke, and then as I stepped through, the whistle went, so I didn't get to touch it. But I think there was only eight people who managed to press it, which is
even get
pretty,
it, which is crazy. It was a tough press, and then on top of that, to follow that with that frame, which was just destroying people that I know for a fact are strong enough to lift that thing up. Such a bummer, man.
Yeah, again, people are going to be bored listening to me say this, but because I'm a refeed, like it was my first time doing the refeed, I literally ate everything that I could, like literally everything. I think I had about 12 donuts, about 6 bagels, cereal, a pizza, a Subway, and then I woke up the next day and I thought I was fine, but my hands, they were like sausages. So, yeah, so when I gripped onto that frame, I couldn't even feel, they were like numb. So I had straps on and I thought that might close my grip a bit because I knew something wasn't right. And then I just couldn't even feel my hands. And I've never been able to watch that, never been able to watch it back. It kills me that much inside.
Yeah.
And then stormed off from that because my hands were all bleeding. And I was like, that's it, right? I might as well go home.
Yep.
Like proper, threw my toys out the pram for it. So yeah, that I feel like I have unfinished business with OSG, and I didn't obviously go it's last year now, isn't it? I didn't go, but it was quite a cost, and I didn't have the leave to take from work and stuff like that. And I was gutted then watching you, so I watched the 80s the whole weekend, and then I had serious FOMO that I wasn't there, and I thought definitely next year I'm planning on coming this year, hopefully. Good. I'm not too sure if I've heard a few people, I think Dean said it as well, if you didn't take up your invite from one year, you can take it the next year.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
too
it does
sure if
carry
you've
over.
heard anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll do that. I lost where I was with my
We were talking about your
can't
grip
remember where it was
and
now.
how you couldn't move the frame at all.
Yeah, I was thinking like, enough of me. This is you. I've just took over it. So coming second in that, what improvements did you think that you could make from that? Obviously, it was awesome performance. And when I've spoke to other people on the podcast, and I'll ask you the question soon of who's the top 3 athletes. Yeah. Everyone that's competed with you has said you, including Dean.
I love that.
Chris Harper.
Yeah.
Tommy. Like, everyone's saying how consistent you were. So what improvements could you made going into last year's 2024, and did you make them?
Yeah. So the biggest improvement I needed to make going into 2024 was the deadlift. And if you go back and watch or check scores and things like that, like, it was me and Chris Harper damn near the entire weekend. Like, there was not anybody that's really close. As soon as Ricky tore his bicep on the deadlift, like, it was just us. And what I found was, like, up until that deadlift point, that is where we got kind of like separated, because we were, and even then we were 1-2, but like we finished 11th and 12th, I think, in that event. But had either of us been able to pull that, it would have completely flipped the scores for the entire weekend. Like, if I would have been able to pull that, it would have put me up to, like, several points ahead of him. And that's just kind of the way it goes. So, I mean, deadlift was the number one thing that I needed to work on. I really worked on that one, and we got that up. And especially towards the end, like, the crazy thing is, what was it, 8 weeks out from the competition this year, I pulled 630 for a single on that axle, and I was like, hey, cool, hopefully I can get one. I know I can get one. And then I hit 5 in comp, and like, so that has drastically improved. So I think, like, that's where my biggest spot I needed to improve. Moving, I still needed, like, the sandbag medley. I don't know what it is. I just keep I keep feeling like I just underperform on these moving medleys, even though I put in the work, I put in the effort to get these done. Like, this year, you could see me, like, I fly through the first bag. I get back to go pick up the Husafell bag, and I'm the first one to pick it up. And Tommy's got his back turned to me, and I'm already taking off. And as soon as I realized that I had popped it up and I was taking off fast, like, my left leg just immediately started cramping. Like, my hamstring just cramped. So it was just moving so slow. And I think that's where that I wasn't necessarily as prepared as I'd like to be for that fatigue about having the events be so soon. Not sure if I would have been able to do much to really prevent that, other than, like, be more ready for that in training. But, like, that's one thing where I needed to improve on. Stones, this is gonna be a little bit long-winded, because I'm frankly mad about this year and, like, the way it turned out. But, like, stones, I knew I just needed to be faster, learn how to do one motions. You and I talked about this a little bit, like, just learning how to do one motions out of pure desperation. Shaved 10 seconds off my stone time from 2023 to 2024, and I don't think I saw any change in my final placing. Like, that's bullshit. That sucks. I hate that. But that just shows how good, like, our weight class is, that a 38-second, 36-second stone load time is good enough for 6th place. Like, that's insane, man.
Yeah. We were speaking about it yesterday. I was doing the same. I see everybody do the one motions, pretty much everybody. So I was, out of desperation, thinking I need to do this. But I just struggle with that pinching my lower back and knee pain. So after speaking to you about it, I think maybe I should just stick with the 2 motion. I can be fairly quick like that anyway. So,
dude, it's marginal. It's marginal. And, like, the only time it's going to matter is when there 6 of the best people in the world are going before you. Like, it's the only time it's going to matter. So for general, it's a tool for your toolkit, but, like, not a necessity for 99% of the people that are going to be listening.
It was so close then going into that. Like, the only event I missed was the stones, and that's because I had work the next day and I was up at 5 a.m. So and it was on quite late here, so that was the only event I missed out the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Just tells a little bit about going into that, how close it was.
I said going into this that, like, I expected it to be like that. I didn't expect there to be a distance. Like, it was going to come down to that last event. I didn't expect there to be a 3-way tie for first or anything like that. That wrecking ball hold really kind of screwed me over, I think. Like, I've tried to, you can't watch that. You can't watch your frame video. I don't know that I can watch my wrecking ball hold video. I haven't watched it yet, but I've had a lot of people tell me that, like, I didn't drop it. but they told me it was down, and like so that's really fucking annoying for me. But that like changed the whole trajectory of that last event too.
I suppose that was quite hard to judge with, like, everyone has a different perspective of where they felt the knees were starting to bend.
Well, where knees were starting to bend, whether it was touching the ground, like whether it was touching the implement, and then like if it swung and apparently if it swung and touched it, some people got flagged for that and other people didn't. My judge on that one was like on his knees, like right up at the can, like looking super, super close. And then you can see, I remember this because I could see where the judge was sitting for the other guy, for Dylan. And he's like just chilling 15 feet back, like just sitting in a chair. I'm like, all right, well, this is not the same judging, like not the same level of judging here. But like that was a super hard event to, I think, judge. And again, I mean, without coming back to like complaining about, OSG, like there just needs to be a standard there. And you expect at the highest level shows that there's a highest level of judging, and like there shouldn't be mistakes like that made. Like that's not something that should happen.
What I was quite excited to see was after speaking to Tommy and his quote of, "I just can't be beat at sandbags," and you've done a few comments on it, and then you've come out together for sandbags. So that was, tell us about that.
That's my favorite moment of the entire weekend. Like that's all I want. I think I don't know if people know this, but yeah, me and Tommy, I hate that guy because I've only beat him one time in our entire career. One of my best friends in this damn sport. Like I love Tommy. He's a great guy. That was my thing that I needed to be Tommy. I wanted to just be me and Tommy against each other so that we could like put this to bed, because he's an incredible sandbag thrower. You know what I mean? I genuinely still think he's clearly one of the best in the world. That's exactly the way I wanted it to go. I wanted to be me against Tommy. If anybody's watched that video, or like you can see how close we were. And even though I missed the first bag, still like I missed my first throw at the 45, and then he had the chance to make it over and beat me, even though I had just missed, and he missed too, and then I got mine over. So it was like, even though we both missed and it wasn't like flawless execution or anything like that, it was still super, super close. And that was just like cool to see, and nothing better than going head to head with one of your buddies, especially in the finals.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll move on to the two questions that I'll give you a bit of time to think about. So the first one is the top 3 athletes that you've ever competed with.
Yeah. The first 2 are easy. It's without a doubt Tommy. Again, just because that guy is like, we like exchange blows constantly, but he's always fucking bested me, except for 1 year. And it was only 2018 OSG. It's the only time I finished ahead of him. And I think he and I were just talking. I think we've competed 8 times, and I've only quote unquote won one of those 8 times. So it's like, shit. But he's like, it's incredible what he's done, how strong he is, how he can walk away from the sport for almost 2 years, come back and take second in the world. Like he came to visit me, and like, I don't know if he wants me to tell this story, but I will. Like, so he came to visit me for a week earlier this year, or earlier in 2024. And we were just like training. He was training for PSL, and like he was just not feeling great. And I was like, fuck, man, like I can't have this guy. I can't have my buddy like not be in prime condition. I need him to be good for OSG. And I remember telling him, like, I need you to be in good shape for OSG. And he ended up getting like rhabdo while he was here, while he and I were training together. So like he had to go to the hospital and shit. And like, but he leaves the sport, or like, steps away to focus on just being, focus on his business, focus on being, stronger and just healing himself, comes back and just kicks everybody's ass. Like, that's incredible. That's what the true greatest athlete in our sport does. And that's who he is. He's the greatest 80 kilo of all time. The next best one, or my next strongest athlete I compete against, is definitely Dean. Again, I love Dean. That dude's an absolute animal. Like, I love his energy that he has. He's just a feral son of a bitch. Like, he comes out, he leaves it all out there. And I'm excited to see that he's stuck around for as long as he has, like, because he puts the pedal to the floor. And, like, I keep thinking, when the hell is he going to, like, when's he just going to burn out? And it doesn't happen. Like, he's just incredible. The third one's harder. There's some other people that have been very consistent that I think that they might not, they're a little bit, like, lower on the radar, or, like, off the radar a little bit, like Quinn Romasco. Again, just a super, super consistent guy. So I'd probably
say mentioned him as well.
Yeah, Quinn's incredible. And fucking Dylan, man. Like, Dylan Thompson. Props to the champ. He reminds me a bit of myself. Like, he's just consistent. Like, he's been there. He's been knocking on the door. He was third last year, went from third to first. Like, that's a huge improvement, man. Like, it's hard enough to podium back-to-back years. Or even twice, period. It's hard enough to do that twice, let alone improve, like, year to year like that. So Dylan's a great athlete. I hope all the best for him, and I hope that he really takes advantage of this championship this year, because I want to see athletes in our sport. I want to see champions in our sport take advantage of their opportunities that they have, like, because he worked his fucking ass off for this, and he should be getting sponsorships. He should be getting accolades for this stuff, and I just want to see that happen.
Yeah, good answer. And on the opposite flip side of that, what annoys you in the sport, and that this could be anything from comps to attitudes, personalities to people,
Dude,
whatever it is.
It is attitudes, and it's like this. It's like attitudes is his number one thing. And there's a difference between being confident and like being confident in your abilities, being confident in how you're going to perform, and then just being like a cocky asshole. And I think that we've seen people that are just cocky assholes. And it's like, I'll say it. When I see somebody that's being cocky or like talking shit about an event, and then they go out and they just dick the event, it makes me so happy. Like, I absolutely love it. This term, like, that's what you get. Like, you should, like, if you don't put your money where your mouth is, like, and if that happens to me, like, let's have it happen. Like, let's have this happen. But like, I hate people. I hate these attitudes that people have where they like think they're so much better than other people. But then they go out and it shows that they're not better. And that's not just for athletes. That's like for promoters too. Like, during rules meetings, if you're talking down to your athletes, the people that are paying for the ability to be here or the chance to be here, and you're going to talk down to them during the rules meeting or at any point in the competition, get the fuck over yourself. And like, have some respect for your athletes. So I think, like, the short answer is just the respect. There needs to be some respect in this sport, and that doesn't mean that you can't, like, rib each other. It doesn't mean that you can't talk some shit to each other. There needs to be a little bit of this competition, but like, you need to have some respect at the same time.
Yeah, I think a little bit more about the although I only thought it more recently about not trash talking, but it gains a bit of rivalry, doesn't it, that people want to see.
Yeah.
But as long as it's not sort of like ruthless sort of, and I only released like 2 episodes ago, I thought, well, I'll say what annoys me, and mine was pretty much similar to yours and I don't know why it annoys me so much, but people saying that they're going to take everyone's title, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they've not got the credentials yet to sort of back that up, and I find it a bit disrespectful to the current champions and the people that are year in, year out, that this person who's done nothing is telling you on Instagram that they're going to take everything, and they've not done anything yet to sort of warrant that. Do you know what I mean? If you or like Tommy, Dean, Blah, Chris, anyone said, I'm going to do this, then that's fine because you got the credentials to back that up. But I just see it quite a bit, and I don't know why it annoys me so much. It just does. And
I'm the exact same way, but that it extends down to be like your time that you've been in the sport too. Like, you've competed 5 times, let's just say, and you just talk a bunch of shit because you did good at OSG. Like, that's not, you still haven't necessarily shown the consistency, because that's what makes a good athlete. That's what makes an elite athlete, is somebody that's able to come in and do it year in and year out. And you've seen it happen time and time again where that doesn't happen. Like, it's where they come in, they do well one year, and then they just fizzle out, and then they don't do anything ever again. It's like, because whether they're in the wrong weight class, like somebody's trying to cut from 105 to 90 and they're talking a bunch of shit, and then they come in and they messed up their refeed, so then they underperform. Like, this stuff happens all the time. But like, it just comes down to, if you're gonna run your mouth, you got to back it up. I'm not mad about people running their mouth, but if you come out and you just look like an asshole, like, you need to know that. And I think the people that have done this do know that you look like an asshole, and you just embarrassed yourself, like, in front of tens of people.
yeah, exactly. So what is your plans for this year, say, competing wise, and then for the future going forward? How old are you actually, Josh?
I'm
still got.
How old am I? 33. Yeah, 33. I turned 34 in March.
So you still got a good few years if you want competing into the sport.
If I'm anything close to Tommy, I've got 10 years in me. Like, that son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I asked him out because I'm 40 this year, so I was asking him, like, do you need to make any, like, have you made many changes? Do you feel things differently? And he didn't really seem to Whereas I feel it, do you know what I mean? And I'm looking around trying to find other people my age to
Yeah.
sort of, oh, it is normal to feel like this, but everyone seems like absolute robots, and I feel like I'm an old man.
It's like I said earlier. Like the things that are different when you age in this sport or that you go further on in your career is it just takes less to get the same result. So I mean, like, I love training. It's like it is. I like training. Like, competing's great, but training is the fun part. Like, it's not a replacement for therapy or anything like that. But it is like it's a good outlet for like just staying active, getting your own space. Like, I'm sitting in my own gym right now, and it's like the happiest place in the world for me because it's just like my little dojo that I have. I've got everything I need in here, and I can do whatever the fuck I want without people getting in my way. Like, you just need to have something like that, something that just kind of keeps you going. And like at my age, I know, especially with a new kid here, like, ironically, like just yesterday, me and my wife were out here with my newborn daughter, and so she got her first training session in out here while I was doing deadlifts. So yeah, I mean, it's more, it just takes a little bit less, but you need to earn it. Like, you don't just to get to be like jump into the sport at 40 years old and suddenly you've already got all the muscle there. Like, you, me, Tommy, like, we put in years and years to get to this point, and it's just when you get that mature muscle, it just takes a little bit less. But plans for this year, as far as competitions go, I'm probably going to only compete 3, maybe 4 times. I've got the Arnold, and then I'm going to do either PSL or ASM. I haven't made a decision yet. And obviously, like, again, with like a newborn child here, my wife is the greatest because she's like so supportive of like helping and like taking on watching my son, now watching my daughter and son while I go compete. She loves coming to the Arnold, like it's her favorite competition to come to and stuff. So that part's great. So I'll be doing that. I'll be doing the Arnold, hopefully going for the 3-peat there, because that would be huge. I'd be the first athlete to ever win their weight class 3 times. Andrew Haynes, who should also be on the list of best athletes I've ever competed against.
I've asked him as well, will he come on here? And he was like, absolutely. So he'll be
Dude,
one in the near
one of the greatest
future.
guys. I love Andrew. That guy's and a super good podcast guy to have on. Like, he's incredible. He's so funny. But yeah, so like Andrew, and I'll be able to hang out with Andrew at the Arnold too. But he won it 3 times. I want to get 3 in one weight class since he had to move up. I still don't forgive him for moving up to 90s that year. That one year I needed to beat him. He took that away from me, but that's okay. It's water under the bridge. I'm not mad, Andrew.
Let it go.
But then yeah, PSL, ASM, and then OSG again. And then I think I have I've got kind of like a secret comp that I might be doing as well that hasn't been announced yet. So that might be something that I go for as well.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I think we've covered pretty much everything on my list. Just one last thing of where can people find you if they want to support and follow your journey?
Yeah. Anybody wants to follow me, I'm on Instagram at Josh Kowalewski. Well, I'm sure we'll put a link in here somewhere. No, we'll put it right here. Right? Is that how we do that?
Right there.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'm primarily on there. And like, anybody has questions, like I always say this, especially if you're new in the sport, like if you have questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to help people that are new in the sport. If you have questions on form, if you're looking for like advice on, whether it's your journey or how you need to do something, whether you should, how you should approach a comp, reach out to me, let me know. At the end of the day, it's like, I'm here to win. I'm here to have a good time in the sport. But like, as I get further on in this journey, it's like, I want to contribute to this community a little bit more. I want to help shows succeed. I want to help athletes succeed. And I just want to leave the sport a little bit better than it was when I came into it.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's nearly the end of the day here, but it's kind of the start of yours. So I hope you have a good day. And I hope to see you in person in December, if all being well. If you just hang on after this, and we'll end that there. So thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, Joe. See you soon.
See you soon, mate.